So I want to give you an opportunity to respond here and now. Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights.
Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada, which a lot of people hear as a call to violence against Jews?
I've heard from many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns with me, especially in light of the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado, about this moment of anti-Semitism in our country and in our city. And I've heard those fears and I've had those conversations, and ultimately they are part and parcel of why in my campaign I've put forward a commitment to increase funding for anti-hate crime programming by 800%.
Quickly, for the people who care about the language and who feel really concerned by that phrase, why not just condemn it?
My concern is to start to walk down the line of language and making clear what language I believe is permissible or impermissible takes me into a place similar to that of the president who is looking to do those very kinds of things.
One of Iran's most senior Shia clerics has issued a fatwa or religious decree against US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for threatening to assassinate Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The fatwa issued in Arabic by Iranian cleric Grand Ayatollah Nazir Makareb Shirazi calls on Muslims to bring down the American and Israeli leaders for threatening the Islamic Republic's leadership. It also goes on to declare that any individual or regime which threatens Iran's leadership and religious authority would be guilty of Muharram. A term means waging war against God. Iranian legislation permits execution, crucifixion, amputation of limbs, or banishment for those guilty of Muharram.
Welcome to Analysis. Thank you for joining me today. Today's broadcast is focusing on something that we've seen rising all through the West, and most unexpectedly for many of us, but not for us at the House of Destiny. And that is the rise of anti-Semitism that has spread throughout the West, and it has been shocking. And back in 2010, my dad prophesied the rise of the Fourth Reich. And he prophesied it from Paris, France. And we've looked at that prophecy many times. But I want to look at it again today. And, we really need to realize that what's going on here is not just political. It is undoubtedly spiritual. And you see that with the rise of anti-Semitism once again. And so although we do continue to look at this prophecy from France, I know we've looked at it a few times this year just on Analysis and on other shows on the network, it's very important to pay careful attention because he prophesied this from Europe, from Paris, France in 2010. And what he saw then is occurring now. And so I'm going to have Doobie and Christy join us in a few minutes after we look at this prophecy. Christy Desfontaine, of course, is with me every week, and Doobie Sabo is, our Israel update and a dear, dear friend of the ministry and of my dad's. And, Doobie can give us a perspective, a Jewish perspective, on what we are beginning to see. So we're going to cover all of that today. But before we do that, let's have a look at that prophecy again from Paris, France, my dad in 2010.
But Europe
Mais en Europe,
will be affected
l'Europe sera affectée.
in the same way that Daniel was praying.
Et de la même façon que Daniel a prié,
There was a war in the heavens.
il y a eu une guerre dans les lieux célestes.
Prince of Persia.
Et le prince de la Perse,
There was a battle going on,
il y a eu une bataille qui a été,
as there is today.
comme il y a aujourd'hui.
And France
Et la France
shall join forces
va joindre ses forces
with Great Britain
avec la Grande-Bretagne
and some other nations
et avec d'autres nations
there will be a war.
et il y aura une guerre,
It shall be a short war.
une guerre courte.
Hear me, please.
Écoutez-moi bien,
This war,
cette guerre,
and I'm not talking about a spiritual war,
et là je ne parle pas d'une guerre spirituelle,
a war will take place.
il y aura une guerre,
It shall be short-lived.
une guerre très courte,
Because as France
parce que comme la France
destroyed the power
a détruit le pouvoir
of invasion
de l'envahisseur
from the Middle East
et des envahisseurs du Moyen-Orient
in the 7th century,
dans le 7e siècle,
so shall it rise up
alors la France se lèvera
and destroy the invading forces
et elle va détruire aussi des forces qui
from
vont
the beast of the
envahir,
East,
qui viendront de l'Est,
and they will overcome
et nous allons vaincre,
an agreement
et nous allons vaincre un accord
between Russia
entre la Russie
and Iran.
et l'Iran,
And they will only win
et nous allons seulement vaincre
because I placed this house
parce que j'ai placé une maison
on the soil of France,
sur le sol de la France,
and because of your words,
et à cause de vos
the
paroles,
battle shall be won in the
la
heavenlies,
bataille sera gagnée dans les lieux
says
célestes
the Lord.
de l'Éternel.
So, Kim, we don't want the war. Too bad.
Ah, je ne veux pas faire la guerre, tant pis.
There shall be. Now, don't get frightened.
Il y aura, maintenant n'ayez pas peur.
We have an enemy that wants to invade.
Nous avons un ennemi qui voudrait bien envahir
Take Christ out of Europe.
afin d'enlever Christ de l'Europe.
Sitting on the front row here
Ici, dans la rangée de devant,
is a pastor from the Netherlands
nous avons ici un pasteur de la Hollande
and a pastor from England.
et un pasteur de l'Angleterre.
They represent the soil
Ils représentent le sol,
and the territories.
la terre,
God is going to pour out His Spirit.
où Dieu veut répandre de son esprit.
Germany will be included.
L'Allemagne sera inclus,
Italy.
l'Italie.
There shall be a great move of the Spirit.
Il y aura un grand mouvement de l'esprit.
It is literally the next Reformation
C'est littéralement la prochaine réforme
that will come about
qui va arriver
because of reconciliation.
à cause de la réconciliation.
And the Fourth Reich
Et la 4e Reich
shall be overcome.
sera vaincue,
For the hatred for the Jewish people
car la haine contre les Juifs
and the people of Christ
et contre le peuple de Dieu
is causing demonic rage.
est en train de provoquer une rage
But
démoniaque.
God,
Mais Dieu
has made a declaration.
a fait une déclaration,
One word
une
out of the
parole,
mouth of these people,
une parole qui sort de son peuple,
and the battle shall be won.
et la bataille sera gagnée.
That word
Cette parole,
is Yeshua.
c'est Yeshua.
Jesus.
Jésus.
Jesus.
Jésus.
Say His name.
Dites son nom.
Say His name.
Dites son nom.
So there it is again. And I know we've again, like I said, we've played this prophecy for you a number of times, but it's very important as we move through this experience, and things are happening quickly through Europe. People are starting to notice the difference. And you see that he saw the rise of a Fourth Reich. France, the UK, the Netherlands, Germany, Italy, countries like that rising up. And so this is hopeful. And overcoming the way that they did in the 7th century invasion from the Middle East. And so today, when we look at the news, and you saw a little bit of it when we first started the broadcast, the things that are occurring, and we're going to cover a lot of those too, we have hope here in that it would be overcome. The Fourth Reich would be overcome. And that they would also, through reconciliation as well, but that they would also overcome an agreement between Russia and Iran. And he spoke about the Prince of Persia and the Beast of the East. And these are things Dad prophesied about going all the way back to 1996 when he prophesied 9/11 from Dearborn, Michigan. And so we see that invasion, and it's happened through open borders and the immigration stuff that's been going on in the West. You see this infiltration of Islam, in particular extremist Islam. And we've seen, obviously, over the last few weeks, the war between Israel and Iran and how America intervened. And so as we go through time now, we're looking back at these prophetic words, and so much of it is making sense, but it's also giving us some hope in a very tumultuous time, as we can see. And one thing that is a big warning sign for us is the anti-Semitism. And as Dad said in that prophecy, the hatred for the Jewish people and the people of Christ, and its causing of demonic rage. And so you see that rage in people, people who are standing up for Palestine, and they think they're, you saw in the beginning there at that concert, hundreds of thousands of people just chanting death to the IDF and from the river to the sea. I mean, these are unthinkable things that they're chanting, hundreds of thousands of people. I think many of them are ignorant. There's a lot of deception that goes on with this. But I'm going to ask Christy and Doobie to join me now. And I'd love to hear their perspective. And in particular, we have some questions for Doobie. So welcome. Christy and Doobie. It's so lovely to have you here today. Welcome, Doobie. We love having you.
We do, Doobs.
It's just wonderful to see you. I'm glad you're doing okay.
Thank you.
And I hope Inbal and your family are doing all right.
Yeah, we're okay. Thank you.
Considering everything. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Toda rabba.
So, Donna, like you were saying, I'm going to get to some questions with you now, Doobs, but there's a headline that I want to read where even before this Glastonbury festival, which is what we saw at the beginning, before those hate chants, the UK Jews were warned of alarming rise in anti-Semitism. So even before this Glastonbury festival, UK Jews were warned ahead of the Glastonbury festival to hide any visible signs of Judaism as organizers and artists pushed anti-Israel rhetoric. Now, Doobs, the question for you is, when a major global event warns Jews to hide their identity, what does that tell you about where we are at in the spiritual war?
You know that most of the Jews that been warned, they weren't even warned by, let's say, the organizers of the festival or governments or secret agencies. They were warned by other Jews who already encountered so many incidents and a huge growing amount of anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic incidents, hundreds of times, hundredfolds more than the statistics that we were used to that have been occurring in England, in Europe, in the US, and around the world, and literally accelerated since the war of Gaza began on October 7th, 2023. I mean, I tell you this not because I'm reading in between the lines or just because, I don't know, I'm connected to any intelligence agencies. I tell you this because I have two sons, now two. There were three of them. One moved out to another country, but I have two sons who are still living in London. My oldest son, Oz, he used to own 4 restaurants in London, which were massively targeted by the Muslims and their collaborators when the war with Gaza started. They just painted swastikas on his doorsteps. They did parades and riots outside of his restaurants. He's been literally targeted as an Israeli, as a Jew, and most of his clientele. I mean, his logo is in Hebrew, English, and Arabic, and most of the food he serves is with Moroccan influence. His main clientele were vegan people, Indian, Christian, and Muslims, because there weren't so many Jews in that area. Where there's 2 restaurants that out of the 4 that he needed to close down because of the hate crime and because what was going on in that area. Jewish pregnant women were pushed in the main streets because they were wearing Jewish clothing, and one lady almost lost her baby. These are things that are growing and rapidly. So this is not something that you need to be a genius to see. They've been warned because the rhetoric has been, as we've seen, much more bold against the Jews. People that used to do things shouting and hiding, now they do it out loud. And it tells you something about the world we're in right now. The influence of Islam is growing to a place that I'm warning the West. It's not only the Jews. It's just like Kim prophesied. It's the Jews and the Christians. And we should always remember that Jesus didn't say that there are Jews and Christians. He said there is a new species in this world. It's Judeo-Christian species. We are grafted together forever for the goal of God. They don't see a difference. They're only different stages. Because there is an ancient hatred in this world against the Jews that has been, manifesting itself in the Christian world ever since the Catholicism took over the world, and was manifesting itself in the Arab world and other places. So they think that if they're going to show in the beginning that they only targeted Jews, the Christians, and some of them from the Dark Ages would say, oh, let's join them because they're going against our shared enemy. But don't be deceived and don't be mistaken. Guys, you are next.
Dubs, I think that's really insightful. And then there's another headline that I want to read, and then I'm going to throw it to another question to you. This is from The Hollywood Reporter. Bob Vylan lose visas dropped by UTA following the Death to IDF chant at Glastonbury. And the quote I'm going to read is Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau confirmed the duo's visas have been revoked in light of the hateful tirade at Glastonbury, including leading the crowd in death chants. Now, the question I have for you, Dubs, is how do events like this shape public perception of Israel and normalize anti-Semitism?
All I want to tell you is that we don't need to look at how do they shape them. We need to look at how do we change it. We give too much influence to the social media and to these people who tries to shout and provoke and incite, against the Jews and everything. But we're just watching it without doing nothing. This doesn't mean nothing to me. What we need to do is to find the elements, just like the Trump administration has been showing now his determination by banning these terrible people from even entering the soil of the U.S. and just propaganding and just, provoking and inciting violence. This is nothing else. They incite violence. What we need to do is to go to our families, to our children, to the children that goes to high schools and colleges, and to bring them out in the street. You know what I wanted? If you would have asked me what would be best, best would be to let them come here in the U.S. and fill the arena with crowd of people that loves God, loves Israel, hate anti-Semitism, and they will shout against him. When he's going to say from the river to the sea, they're going to say Israel is all you're going to see. And when he's going to say death to the IDF, they're going to say IDF will win the wars. They need to stand there, shout in a counterattack towards these people. We leave the arena to them, and what happens is by banning them to come over, they don't see our side of the story. They don't face any opposition. We leave the stage to them, and that's all they hear, instead of bringing the multitudes of the people that I know that they are supporting us. There are over 60, 70 million evangelical Christians in the U.S. that loves Israel, care about Israel. We have millions of them on our channel. We need to tell them, go buy the tickets to this arena, stand outside of the arena. When these people are going to shout from the river to the sea, you're going to shout the contra shout. You're going to show them that Israel and the Jews has a backup. We have a support. A rabbi from London many years ago, the chief rabbi of London who just passed away a few years ago, he was very, very smart about what he was saying. He said something straightforward, and now in the excitement of the moment, I forgot his name, but I will remember. And he said, Jews cannot win the war against anti-Semitism alone. We cannot win it alone. We need our fellow brethren and sisters from the faith that is linked and connected to us, from the people that remember their Jewish roots of your faith, the Christian people who are grafted to us through Jesus Christ, to stand together with us because we know the end game. We know that the end game is saying that God's house of prayer will be a house of prayer for all the families of the earth. What counts now is how many innocent people are going to die in that process. And dying in that process means leaving the streets and the influence to the hateful people instead of standing firm against them. And that's what we need to do. So for me, it's not a good decision to ban him from coming into the US. The decision should have been let him come and show him our strength.
Interesting take, Dubes.
Well, actually, no, I'm not surprised because when you censor this kind of hatred, it festers. It's better to have it out in the open. Just like you said, Doobie, I agree with you. This is why we have free speech. Free speech isn't always speech that you like or agree with, but at least you know what's going on. And like you said, enough Americans would stand up to that and would not tolerate it because, Dad prophesied that this was a long-term plan, and we do understand that. Because if you look at the situation in Iran, the way that they ended up being imprisoned under this regime was that liberals with Islamists got together, and whenever that happens, that's trouble. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who don't actually understand what's going on when they shout River.
But people didn't see.
They don't actually.
Sorry to interrupt you, but people didn't see the signs. We're talking about 2008 already, when Barack, and I'm now going to say Barack Hussein Obama decided that his first speech outside of the soil of the U.S. will be in Egypt at the hub of the Islamic Brotherhood University in Egypt, saying 27 times, repeating, the Holy Quran commands us. The Holy Quran says, people didn't see the signs, and you're seeing it and you're saying it. When liberals and Islamists are getting together to blindfold the silent majority, that's took so many atrocities and craziness to get the silent majority to vote right for Trump, to vote right for Trump, to vote right for the right side of history, because we are the silent majority. We don't want to get outside of our comfort zone, but that's what has to be done right now. That's the same story of the Jews in Europe. The Jews in Europe, during the times of the Nazi regime coming up, some Jews ran away to Israel, but others, the elite, the intelligentsia, they would say, no, nothing can happen in Germany. We are so light to the world. We are so enlightened. We are so advanced. Oh, the Germans are peaceful people. Nothing can happen like this. And they didn't go out and they didn't protest. And when the terrible situation occurred, the vast majority of the people that even were against it, they were like oleander. They bended down and they let the water run over them, waiting for the time to get up. Now we understand we need to stand up. That's why if you say freedom of speech, there's a freedom to speak differently. But we are not so well organized, because for the Islam and for the collaborators and for Iran and their proxies, they wage war in ways that we don't even think about. When we want to consume our beautiful little soccer games, or sit on a Sunday or on a Shabbat and watch our baseball and just see NFL and enjoy our little sports, they go to the mosques, they purchase the media channels, they send Qatar to finance the schools and the education system. And when we do nothing and we don't listen to your dad that was saying years ago, we have to take it from the comfort of our little churches, ecclesia, into the marketplace. They have been taking it to the marketplace. It's all over. You see them walking in the street. You think there are millions of them. They're only 10% or 15% in London or in Paris. But these are all the people you see and hear. The other people, they get together under the London Bridge and they launch a prayer of 150,000 people. And people think there are millions and millions and we cannot stand against them. But the majority are the silent ones who are doing nothing.
That's right, Doobie. That is the problem. And actually, I have a headline here to read you because of, again, I've really looked at Iran since the war and really looked at the history of it, and I didn't know a lot of details about it. And I feel very sad for the Iranian people who are imprisoned under that regime. And the whole thing is very sad. But I have a headline here from Times of Israel. Dozens of Iranian Jews summoned for questioning on suspicion of ties to Israel. An Iranian woman tells Israeli news outlets she witnessed the arrest of 10 Jewish neighbors, saying women were released but men still in custody. So the question for you, Dubi, is what does this tell us about the broader spiritual attack on the Jewish people, not just in the West, but in the Middle East too? And please also tell us the history of this unique Jewish community in Iran.
Well, the Jewish community in Iran goes all the way back to 2,500 years ago, the times of Cyrus. I mean, some people the followers of Ezra and Nehemiah, they came to rebuild the Second Temple and they immigrated from Iran back to Israel. Some of them were dispersed throughout the world. Jews are everywhere, and some Jews lived very, very comfortable lives in Iran until the falling of the Shah in the late 70s. And this is their home. That's the thing with the Jewish people. Jewish people, even those living here in America, many of them are voting for America. They vote for the Democrats, even though they weren't so good for Israel. They don't put Israel first. Jews are loyal to the countries where they live in. They serve in the American army, they serve in the European army, they served in the Russian army during the Second World War, First World War, and everything. Jews are loyal to their regime. And the Jews that lived in Iran, in Persia, those who are still there, that had the opportunity to flee and run away, they weren't political Jews. They were Jews that cared about their lineage, about their legacy, about their heritage, about the years and years and years that there were very good relations between Iranians and Jewish people, between Persians and Jewish people. I mean, Daniel was in Persia. I mean, all the stories of the Esther and the story of Esther and the scroll of Esther is in Persia. But Persia is also one of the oldest birthplace of anti-Semitism. I mean, we know about the Amalekites, but we also know about Haman, and the first maybe recorded before other scriptures from other religions and other cultures that we know from history, like the Egyptian culture and all kinds of different scriptures that were found. But we know from our very Bible that Haman was just disliked the Jews. And he came and he told lies to the king and wanted to get rid of all the Jews, literally said, let's get rid of all these people. So the Jewish history in Iran is very, very long. And for many years, Iranian Jews were comfortable. They lived together with their neighbors. The neighbor was talking about her neighbors. They're speaking about rubbish because these people has been interrogated dozens of times through all the wars of Israel. They've been monitored by this regime for a long time, but they want to make a point. They want to intimidate and just, spread fear amongst their own population who are, I think, unfortunately, you say they are in captivity, but I think they probably deserve their leadership. In Israel during the 50s, the early 50s, late 50s, the communist and the social communist parties in Israel had such a power and such a huge political power. The main nation that supported Israel and had they had alignment with Israel, and we had all kinds of different amnesties was Russia, not the U.S. The U.S. only supported Israel firmly, really, after 67, when they've seen what we were able to defeat all the Arab countries. And after 73, when they saw that during Yom Kippur, most of the people that fought for the Syrian army were instructors and specialists from Russia, and they lost that war against Israel. So they've seen the power of Israel. They say, hey, guys, we have to put our eggs in the Israeli basket and not in the other people of the Arab world. And this is where we really got connected. But Russia had such a huge influence here in Israel, we could easily go into a communist regime here in Israel, very easily. But no, the people understood what communism was, and we walked out of the streets, and we made a power, we made a noise, and we protested, and we didn't let them prevail. The Iranian people, they are so easily bullied, like being a lamb to the slaughter, and they let this regime to do something. America and Israel tried to give them the backup dozens of times. Just be courageous. Get out of your comfort zone. I know there'll be casualties, but this is a war. You will win your freedom. Go out to the street. Iran is the weakest they've ever been, and still their people are not going out. So I blame only them.
And I hear you, Dubi, because that's what the question keeps arising, is now that the Iranian regime is weakened, it's up to the Iranian people. And I know that there are some that really want it, but I don't think it's enough. And it's very sad.
That's
actually.
why I said that this war ended too early, too fast. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's ended too early, too fast. America should go full steam in and use the victory and use the situation when Iran has zero air defense. They were wide open for every interference of foreign armies and to go in and topple them down. But I don't know, maybe this still will happen.
Well, listen, this is going to lead into my next headline that I have here. And I have to admit, Dubi, I was very disappointed when Trump came out and he was swearing that Monday. It felt, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I observed the situation was, it felt like by demanding the ceasefire between Iran and Israel, it's almost like he tied Israel's hands, that they couldn't finish the job. And that's the way I felt, and maybe I'm wrong again. But I was very, I love Trump, but I felt that he wanted this peace before he went to NATO. And he said, force the ceasefire. And he was getting angry, but I felt like, it looked to me like, gosh, they could just go in and take out Khamenei and whoever else they need to. And America didn't even need to do anything more. They'd already taken out the nuclear sites. If they could have just allowed Israel to finish the job, it would have been, to me, a better situation. And maybe I read it wrong. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think you read it wrong. I think that Donald Trump is surrounded by beehives of people that interrupt his real wheels. And he has to take into consideration a lot of things that we don't see clearly from where we are. But he's very much disrupted by people that surrounds him. Donald Trump also very much aware and frightened of the American economy. He really wants to recover it and to rebuild it. That's his first agenda, knowing that he'll sink into deeper mud and a longer war will cause a lot of expenses from the American side. Even if Israel will be doing the job, America needs to equip us because we cannot do it on our own. He thinks that, and another thing is that he wants to fight some kind of a bad reputation that people try to glue to his personality, saying that he's not a man of peace. This guy, in only 130 or some days that he's been in office, he's been conducting negotiations about peace between Russia and Ukraine. He brought peace to two major super nuclear powers, India and Pakistan. He's forcing and pushing towards peace between Israel and Syria, Israel and Hamas, Israel and Iran. He's really into an agenda of peace. He's a praying president. A lot of people whisper on his ears and say to him, one of the most major verses in the Bible is pray for the peace of Jerusalem, which is really mistranslated, because the words in Hebrew means pray for peace in Jerusalem, pray for peace for Jerusalem. So, this is what you have to pray for, because when there'll be peace, it means that God will return with his Messiah to the city of eternity. So he really wants to advance and progress the peace. And still sometimes you have to realize and understand that peace can only come through strength and power. If you stop too early or prematurely, you give time to the enemy to regroup, to recover. And now look what's happening there. The Iranians already announced that they're not going to collaborate with the committee that supervises the atomic energy. They'll ban them from entering into Persia, Iran. We heard people in the American administration, probably closer to the Pentagon, that maybe are remains of the old regime, saying to the New York Times that America didn't really even scratch the surface. And the intelligence is saying that they haven't been able to stop the Iranian nuclear program and plan, and we are still studying it right now. and we're giving them time to recover, to regroup. They're still chanting and shouting, death to Israel, death to America. There's a fatwa that has been released by the imams over there against Bibi Netanyahu and against Donald Trump to kill them. The Iranian regime is still pushing an agenda against America, against Israel. So, if you were taken down to your knees begging for ceasefire, you don't act like this. It was very premature, and I'm sorry that America did it, and they keep on doing it. We know that Bibi Netanyahu has to come to Washington, D.C. probably the beginning of next week, and the main condition that I see from the Americans is a 60-day ceasefire with Gaza before the war is stopped and finished. There's a lot of pressure from the American side on Israel, and you know why? Because you have more influence at home that you have outside. You can tell your husband to do something for you easier than call the neighbor to do it for you. And that's the same story. We are in a domestic place between America and Israel, the closest relationship. He can push Israel around, but he cannot do it to the Iranians or the Arab world.
Well, a big reason for Trump and what was going on is because of the anti-Semitism that we've seen on the conservative side, which shocked me, Dubi. It's just completely illogical, conspiracy theories and lies. And if you just look for 5 minutes, you can see it isn't true. But you have strong voices, well-known voices, like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Alex Jones, who get out there and propagate. And I don't know if they're deceived or if they're getting paid, whatever is going on with them. That has had an influence, and whoever else, like you said, inside is influencing. And then the American people, not understanding the situation, are afraid of another Iraq or another Afghanistan. When if you just look at it for 5 minutes, it's not the same. And like I said before, I felt that, like you feel, that it was ended prematurely, because now you have an unfinished job. And now the Iranian regime is going to regroup, and now they're full of vengeance.
Yes.
And here, let me read you the headline I've got here, because you brought up the fatwa. New York Post. Top Iranian cleric issues a fatwa against Trump and Netanyahu. Iranian cleric issues a fatwa against Trump and Netanyahu, labeling them enemies of God. And so... I don't need to ask. I had a question there, but I don't need to ask you because we just covered it.
No, but there is a question.
But look what they've done.
There is a question. And you know what? Us, the West, Israel, America, we need to learn from that fatwa. We need to realize and understand and wake up to one thing. God wants us, Netanyahu's and Trump, to be together because that's what fears the enemies the most. They need a godly so-called imam's fatwa, a religious war backup to go against the two real superpowers who frightens them the most. You don't bring fatwa against something that doesn't just bring terror to your heart. They are terrorized. They are so afraid of this connection, this linkage, and specifically the words that Donald Trump released after they said that this is what we have done. He says, me and Netanyahu work together like no other leaders ever worked together. That's what brought the fatwa. The enemies of Israel are seeing now Christians and Jews getting together in such a superpower that intimidates their very being. That's why they want to incite every Muslim in the world to pray, to intercede for the death of America, for the death of Israel, for the death of these two kings. That's the big story. That's the question that we have to ask ourselves. Why they want these two people dead and our people on the conservative side don't want these people to thrive and to be victorious and to work together to defeat the enemy. That's because, listen, the devil, the devil already has his own crowd. He has his own cheerleaders on the Islamic world. He has them. What he wants is the extra leverage in our hearts. That's why he comes against Jews and Christians. That's why he comes against those liberal Jews, that 20% of them were voting for a Muslim nominee to be the mayoral candidate for the New York. The biggest population of Jewish people outside of Israel is in New York City. 20% of them vote for this guy who is the pure anti-Semite Nazi socialist. So what you talk about, that's where the devil comes and try to infiltrate and build the cracks and enter into the cracks, the heart of the Jews, the heart of the Christians, because you know why the first and the second temple were toppled? Only because of brethren wars between Jews and other Jews.
Duby, it's so true. And I know, Christy, Duby, you and I have kind of taken the stage a little bit, but Christy has some questions for you as well.
I think I'm honestly, just because of time, I'm just going to ask one more question before we go into another prophetic moment with Kim, which was really incredible. But Dubes, the question that I wanted to ask you, and this is the one I'm going to ask before we go into this word, historically, when nations turn on the Jewish people, it marks a spiritual collapse. Are we witnessing that collapse again in the West today?
No, we're not.
Okay.
We're not seeing it now. It's not there yet. These are, again, we're giving them too much power. These are Look, you know, Kim was prophesying on the previous prophecy, and I'm sorry, I'm going to take a little minute about that. He prophesied about France, about England, Britain, about Holland, about Germany, about Italy. He was prophesying about all these nations to stand against the alignment, the deal between Russia and Iran, right?
Yeah.
He was talking about it. People say, well, it didn't happen now. This war, only America and Israel fought it. But they turned to forget that this already came to pass. The first time that Iran attacked Israel with 360 rockets and missiles and drones, there was a coalition of Italy and France and England and the US and Saudis and Jordanians and even Egyptians that intercepted all these rockets and all these missiles, and all these rockets and missiles, they come together and they were built due to the alignment and to the agreements between Russia and Iran. They worked together and
Very
they
good
built
point.
it together, and the whole entire missile project of Iran and the whole entire nuclear project of Iran are embedded in Russian technology that started already in the 60s, 70s, and so on. So this was already targeted. This prophecy of your dad came to pass. It's not saying that it's going to return over and over again, but I'm telling you, those hateful people that you see in Europe, they are the minority now. We just need to awaken them. We heard the guy from Holland who's speaking already into the Holland government, and he tells them, hey, listen, this government, he took down the government of Holland due to the fact that they didn't do enough to fight anti-Semitism and all these kind of stuff. So we have some powers in Europe. We have powers in the US that I hope that will prevail and will bring an awakening. They'll bring an awakening because, you know, there'll be no chance for an awakening if there's not a dormant army to wake up.
Yes.
There is an army that just need to be awakened.
That's beautifully put, Dubes, and it's very encouraging and inspiring and full of hope. And what we're going to do now is go to this next video of Kim, and then we'll come back. But make sure your heart is open for this, because this really is, it's a special moment. So let's go to this clip now.
This is very special to me.
C'est très spécial pour moi.
It's very special because the Lord spoke to me.
C'est très spécial parce que le Seigneur m'a parlé.
And He put a word into my spirit
Il a mis une parole dans mon esprit
for France
pour la France
and for this house,
et pour cette maison.
because so much is about to happen.
Parce qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui vont se passer.
A great cloud,
Une grande nuée,
a dark cloud
mais une nuée sombre.
of Islam
La nuée de l'islam
has come down.
est descendue.
But I saw another cloud.
Mais j'ai vu une autre nuée.
It was descending,
Une nuée qui descendait
and I saw the figure,
et j'ai vu la silhouette,
face
la face
of a glorified Christ.
d'un Christ glorifié.
And I saw a moon
et j'ai vu une lune
and stars,
et des étoiles.
and the stars in the moon
Et les étoiles dans la lune
scattered.
se sont éparpillées.
The Spirit of God said,
Et l'Esprit du Seigneur a dit
if a dark cloud would descend to take my people,
que si une nuée sombre descend pour prendre
Deceive
mon
them.
peuple, pour tromper mon peuple,
lie to them,
pour mentir à mon peuple,
then another cloud must descend.
alors une autre nuée doit descendre.
I sense
Et je ressens
revival in France
un réveil pour la
more
France,
than ever.
plus que jamais.
I'm not just saying it.
Et je ne le dis pas comme ça,
In the presence of our enemies,
dans la présence de nos ennemis.
God excels.
Dieu est excellent.
Elijah
Élie
built an altar
a bâti un autel
in the presence
dans la
of
présence
Baala,
de Baala,
the prophets of Baala.
des prophètes de Baala.
They were destroyed,
Et ils ont été détruits.
and a cloud came the size of a man's hand.
Et une nuée s'est présentée de la taille de la paume d'un homme.
And there was an abundance that came.
Et une abondance est venue.
Do not fear
Alors ne craignez rien
for this that has happened in France
à cause
and
de
in
ce
Paris.
qui s'est produit à Paris.
It is the beginning of many, but
C'est le commencement de beaucoup de choses.
God said, I will take
Mais Dieu a dit, je prendrai
the fire that I have promised you,
le feu que je t'ai promis.
and it shall consume
Et ce feu va
your
consumer
enemies.
tes ennemis.
I don't speak of revival easily,
Je ne parle pas facilement d'un réveil.
but the minute my feet landed in Paris,
Mais la minute où j'ai posé les pieds à Paris,
God said to me,
Dieu m'a dit,
can you sense
est-ce que tu peux ressentir
the presence
la présence
of revival?
d'un réveil?
Not in England,
Pas en Angleterre,
not in Belgium,
pas en Belgique,
not in any other nation. It starts in France and it starts here.
mais ça va
says the Lord.
commencer en France. Et ça commence ici.
Obviously an absolutely incredible moment. And before I give it to Donné to speak about that, I just want to take a moment to invite everybody to sow into this. You know, we have this mission here of broadcasting truth and broadcasting these prophecies that were given in a world where we're surrounded by darkness, we're surrounded by lies, we're surrounded by propaganda. This is an opportunity for us to continue broadcasting truth. And so I'm encouraging you, you know, what Kim said there was so powerful, speaking about revival, spiritual awakening, so many things that he was prophesying about that we're seeing happen now, right now. I'm encouraging you to give into that, to sow into that. I know it was from 2015, but it's for now, it's for our present, and it's for our future. There's a lot of ways you can do that. You can click the red link, you can text your gift, you can call it in, you can mail it in. There's so many different ways, but I am encouraging you to do that, to sow into the future and the present of what was prophesied in the past with what God showed him so clearly there. It was such a powerful time, such a powerful word. And so, Donné, I'll hand this to you now, but I just wanted to give everybody that moment and that opportunity to do that and to give.
Yes, and you know what? Really, I would encourage people to do that in this moment as well, because that is the nature of the prophetic. He prophesied then what is for us now. And there was a very clear warning. As Juby pointed out, what we saw prophesied in 2010, we have just been in the middle of that. And now we go to 2015. It was the last time my father traveled to Europe, I believe, and because I think he went to England before that. And God showed him what the issue was going to be, but we have the hope, and that is what we're encouraging you to sow into right now, is that revival. And he was very specific about France. He was very specific about what God was going to do in France and then through Europe. So we see the problem. We see the immigration issue. We see the infiltration of Islam and them wanting to, even in America now. We see the threat, but God has given us a promise of hope, of revival. So many times my dad prophesied about Damascus Road conversions, that even in the Middle East, even in places like Iran, even in the Far East, in places like China, that where we as Christians cannot reach them, Christ will reach them himself. And we're hearing testimony after testimony after testimony of Jesus appearing to people, to Muslim people who've never read a Bible, or atheist people, or Buddhists, or wherever they are, never read a Bible. And he's appearing to them. So God is moving in ways that may not be reported on your news media, but he is. And he reported it to us in advance through my dad, the prophet, many years ago. And so we stand in this moment now, and it's an important moment. It's a very important moment. And so, Christy, I think that we should pray before we leave today. And thank you so much, Doobie, also for joining us and giving us such wonderful insight, as you always do. We love you, Doobie, and stay for the prayer.
Can I say a quick word?
Pray. Oh, yes, please.
I just want to mention that I was there in France with your dad, 2015. The atmosphere was electrifying. And when he started to speak about the influence of the prophets of Baala, and the people there didn't really know what he was talking. Even the lady mistranslated the name of Elias, and she says Eli, and because, Eli in Hebrew means God. So she literally, without even understanding what she was saying, she said, God built an altar in front of the people that follows Allah. So the revival must be a huge part of France. I felt the electrifying sense there in the crowd when your dad was prophesying, and I know that we are about to see that happening. I know that. Not that I'm a prophet, but I know these weren't words that been just released to the atmosphere like that. It was very, very right on spot.
Amen to that. So,
yes, Doobie, you're absolutely right.
Let's pray for everybody out there watching. Join with us now. So, Father, we ask you right now that we would see supernatural protection specifically over Jewish communities, over Jewish people, over the nation of Israel, as we've seen so much of it's a continual barrage of vile anti-Semitism. We know that you said so clearly back in Genesis 12 that those who bless Israel would be blessed. And so we're asking for blessing over every single supporter, every viewer, every person who stands with Israel in any way that they're able to, whether it's speaking up, speaking out, standing with, sowing, praying, whatever it is they do. We're asking for your blessing to be activated in every single life. We're trusting you that you're going to expose anti-Semitism. You're going to expose it at its very core level. And we pray that the voices of those who are for would be louder and greater than the voices of those who are against. Even as in the scriptures where you showed your prophets and said, greater are those who are with us than those who are against us. We know that even now the great cloud of witnesses surrounds us. We know that the throne is filled with the cries of the holiness of who you are. And you are the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You are the great I am. You are the living one. You are the one who watches over Israel, who never slumbers or sleeps. You are the ultimate, the Alpha, the Omega. You are everything. You are everything that we need. And we're trusting you for your protection. We're trusting you for your intervention. We're trusting that your kingdom would come on earth as it is in heaven. And that's what I've been praying every single week, that your kingdom would come on earth as it is in heaven, because we know what your will is in heaven, and we know that the eternal city of Jerusalem is what we look forward to, our new home, when there is a new heaven and a new earth. It is an eternal city that is like Jerusalem, and that is what we're waiting for. So we're trusting you, God, for your protection, for your intervention. We pray for an activation of blessing over every supporter, and we thank you for who you are. We pray for protection over Bibi Netanyahu, protection over President Trump, and that every foul lie and decree from the lips of those that follow the opposer of the brethren, we're asking that those plans would be crushed and exposed in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen. That was powerful, Christy. Wow. Well, I think we're out of time, you guys, but that was just such a great conversation. Thank you so much, Doobie, for joining us today and helping us analyze all of this. And it's just a blessing to just have you with us today, and also just to have you as a gift to part of our ministry and our lives. And we love you
too.
And Inbal. we continue to pray for you and
This
your
ministry
family
is our home.
through this.
It's our home.
We know. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Again, don't miss anything happening at the House of Destiny Network this week. We've got stuff going on all the time. Every single day, we've got something for you. Of course, you don't want to miss Israel Update. Doobie and Christy are going to keep updating you on what is going on. That's coming this Friday. And of course, we have our regular programming on House of Destiny Network. Also, I want everybody to know we were hacked, and we have lost the Kim Clement Prophetic Rewind Facebook page with hundreds of thousands of followers. We were hacked. Facebook is saying they never even saw that the page was ever there. So we're still trying to fix it. But as of now, please go and follow House of Destiny on Facebook. Just look for us. If you're wondering what happened to Kim Clement Prophetic Rewind, it was literally stolen away from us. And that's hundreds of thousands of people and followers. And so also, you can go to the X page. I'm just getting instruction from the back there. You can go to the X page as well. So just search for Prophet Kim Clement. And if you're on Instagram, everything is fine there. But if you have followed the Kim Clement Prophetic Rewind Facebook page and it has disappeared, it's because we were hacked and it has been stolen from us. And so just make sure you go over and follow the House of Destiny on Facebook, follow us on X, follow us on YouTube, on Rumble. You'll still get the programming, but the number one place you want to go, the number one place you want to be connected to is our website, houseofdestiny.org, or kimclement.com will also take you there. Make sure that you're connected over there, that you're signed up for our e-blasts and our emails and communications, so that if we do have an issue with any social media platform, you can still find us. So make sure that our base is the website, and so important. So we're very sorry about that's happened, but we will see you next week with more analysis. Of course, Sunday, I'll be live on Code Breakers Live. We're going to have our prayer meeting, Gathering of the Dangerous, Tuesday night, and we are not giving up. We are moving forward, and we're so grateful to have you. And so thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next week on Analysis. Hello, friends. I'm Danae Clement Petrushka, and I am honored to invite you to something truly extraordinary, the Kim Clement Prophecy Vault. Now you can gain unprecedented access to my father's entire digitized video archive. Every prophetic moment, every powerful teaching, every anointed worship session is now available to you in the Prophecy Vault. Plus, I'm excited to share that my dad's special School of the Prophets teachings are included, offering you deep, transformative lessons on hearing God's voice and understanding his revelations. Your partnership is crucial. Not only will you gain access to these incredible resources, but you'll also help us continue the vital work of preserving, digitizing, and adding new Kim Clement material to the archives. I'm inviting you to step into the Kim Clement Prophecy Vault. Let's embark on this journey of revelation together, and I can't wait to see you inside.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
We here at the House of Destiny are partnering with you to let our viewers, of course, know about your company. It's Beverly Hills Precious Metal.
Andrew, explain how that works.
So I'll walk you through it right now. So if you go to bh-pm.com, right there on the homepage, you'll see a form that you could fill out. And that form is very important in letting us know how we can help you. So you just put in your first name, last name, email address, phone number. There's a section that says, how did you hear about us? And in there, put Kim Clement. And then there's a portion where you could write a couple of notes down on the bottom. Usually within about 24 to 48 hours, we'll contact you by phone call, and then we'll go over everything with you. This isn't a high pressure deal. We always recommend that if you feel uncomfortable, take a step back, pray about it. You will gain the answers that you need by doing that, and come back to us when you're comfortable.